Please welcome the Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm going to be performing on the cello as well in a minute. That's the special surprise. I want to welcome you all to this. This is a very special event, and sometimes I'm insincere and I joke around a lot, but this is truly a very, very special thing for all of us. Deavere Smith, you all know, a legend, brilliant playwright, certified genius, certified by the MacArthur Foundation at least as a genius. Also, by the way, fantastic actress. 25th anniversary of West Wing, for those of you who remember her on West Wing. And what we're going to do today is we're going to see Anna at the height of her writing and performing power. I don't have to give you her bio. You all know who she is. This is how this began, and we're gonna talk about this after she performs. But this all came about out of a conversation she and I were having. She's an Atlantic contributing writer, and we were having a conversation about a special issue we wound up doing on Reconstruction, or the unfinished business of Reconstruction, and you know, she has so many different ideas and so many pathways she wants to go down. We were talking a lot about juvenile justice and the race and gender components of juvenile justice in our country. And we were plotting and scheming, and my colleague Scott Stossel was intimately involved in this, plotting and scheming and figuring out what an essay that she could write that could cover some of the issues that she cares about so much. But the essay form wasn't capacious enough for everything that she wanted to do. So finally, one day, I just said, you know, it doesn't take a genius to realize when you're talking to a playwright. I said, why don't you just write a play? And then she said, but you're a magazine. And I said, yeah, but so what, really? Like, I don't know. I mean, so the long and short of it is that this Ghost of Slavery became a play. It was only the second play ever published in the Atlantic's 167-year history. It's brilliant. You're going to get a great taste of it today. We've staged it a couple of times, had readings a couple of times in New York and at the National Gallery of Art recently, and I have the highest hopes for this. I think you'll understand why once you see what Anna is bringing to us today. So I want to formally welcome you to this. It's a one-woman play today, with one exception. I will be playing the part of the white power structure, and I'm not even kidding. And of course, we're accompanied by two wonderful performers, the cellist Joshua Roman and the percussionist Zane Rodolfo, who are right here with us. And I want to say a special thank you to Scott Stossel, my colleague, for working so hard on the play with Anna. And I want to thank the Apollo Theater's Camilla Forbes for directing today's performance. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anna Deavere Smith for this Ghost of Slavery.
I couldn't hear Jeffrey backstage, so I don't know if he made it clear that I'm not going to be doing this as a one-person show other than for you. That's not the intention, so anyway. Okay, this Ghost of Slavery, Act 1. Theater Magic Realism will help us move effortlessly between 2024 and 1864 as the play moves back and forth in time. An 11-year-old American Afro-Caucasian slave girl from the 1860s, ill-clothed, bare feet, walks across the stage. She's our guide in the play. She opens a huge curtain, which reveals a classroom at Johns Hopkins University, Baltimore, Maryland, present day. Anas Ali, a robust black man, 30s, black t-shirt, black jeans, is at a lectern mid-speech. Anas Ali. I didn't mean to kill him. I was just trying to scare him. He was an addict, and I got him his drugs, and he was messing with my money. But when you kill somebody, that's a heavy thing. I was 17 years old. When I went to court to be sentenced, the prosecutor asked to give me more time than I was taking a plea bargain for. And I asked the judge, can I speak to the family? So I turned around, and one thing that stuck out to me was that I couldn't really identify who was there for them and who was there for me, because our families look so much alike. And I said to the family that no matter how much time I get, the prosecutor wasn't there to support them. It was just another body that was dead and another person being locked up in prison. And I told the family that I would try my best whenever I got out of prison to help young men not make the same decisions as I made. I said that at 17 years old, going to prison. Every Wednesday or Tuesday, it's like a bus that comes into prison. Every week, you guarantee 10, 20 guys coming into prison. And I just remember looking like, it seemed like every Wednesday, if it's 20 guys, it's 16 black guys, like clockwork. When I got out, I was 24 years old, and I was just eager to talk to young guys and tell them what's on the other side, and it's just not worth it. Tell them, whatever you're going through is so much better than being in prison. If I had to walk miles, it's so much better than being in prison. Standing outside in the cold. I shot a man, and it's a heavy thing. Cautious applause. Lighting now reveals that we're in a classroom of undergrads, notably diverse, but predominantly white and Asian. A black male student looks skeptically at his classmates who are applauding. Professor Jack Ross, white, late 20s, a mop of hair, wearing a t-shirt and a frayed jacket that he's worn since prep school, steps towards the podium. He shakes Ali's hand fervently. Professor Jack Ross, that was great. That was terrific. That was it. It was so exciting. The black male student jumps up. Black male student, seriously, Jack? This man just told us about a painful time in his life, and you're calling it exciting? Jack, to Anas Ali. I'm so sorry. Anas Ali, don't apologize. I do believe I'm one of the most exciting cats in the city of Baltimore. Maybe in the whole state of Maryland, Jack. That's great, that's great, it's great. Okay, Professor Nelson, thank you for sharing Mr. Ali with us. Want to introduce the other founding members of your new nonprofit. Jack extends his hand to Professor Carolina Nelson, Black 30s, who's standing in the back of the room with a very hip cadre of folks who do not look like typical Johns Hopkins University fare. Carolina. Sure. Tobias, my co-CEO, she points to Tobias Midwinter, black 40s, wearing runway-style street fashion. Tobias, how y'all doing? Carolina. Zell, security, she points to a black woman in her 20s, a jock. Zell, hey. Carolina. Lindsay, community relations, she points to a gorgeous woman who has a tattoo of a bullseye on her otherwise bald head. Lindsay, hey, babies. Carolina. And Carl, our staff psychiatrist. She points to Carl Vogel, the only white person in her cohort, 30s, warm demeanor, kind of like Paul Farmer. Carl. So happy to be with you. Carolina. And once again, Anas Ali, our aide-de-camp. Carolina. We are Latitude, dedicated to vulnerable kids and all aspects of their lives, in trouble, out of trouble, in proximity to trouble, never been in trouble. Latitude. Dictionary says a scope for freedom of action, freedom of thought or action. We're thought in action. We're action in thought. Crossing straight through poverty, hoping to cross straight out of it with better outcomes. Working with the system and outside the system. Stretching to judges, cops, prison guards, probation officers, teachers, therapists, medical folks. Working on the edges of the system with mamas, grandmamas, great-grandmamas, foster mamas, and aunties. Latitude. Dictionary says the angular distance of a celestial object north or south of the celestial equator. We are celestial, the sky's the limit. Anas Ali. We in juvenile hall, Zell. Basketball courts, Tobias. Emergency rooms, Carl. By the school, waiting for a kid who just got kicked out, Zell. Catching them before the drug dealers recruit them right out of the schoolyard, Lindsay. And moving. I'm the one always moving in the streets, Anas Ali. And at the crazy down-home chicken and seafood on Edmondson, Carl. We're in group homes, Tobias. Psych wards, Lindsay. Funeral homes, Tobias. Morgues, Anas Ali. Autopsy rooms, Tobias. Graveside, holding mamas, Carolina. And we're looking for interns. This is my last 20 minutes here in the halls of Johns Hopkins before I go on sabbatical. So what a better way to spend these last 20 minutes in seeing if one or two or three or four of you would be willing to be an intern and work with us. Zell starts handing out applications. Anas Ali. It ain't for the weak of heart.
Did you just say something about me?
I did.
I didn't hear it. I think you.
I called you a brainiac.
A brainiac.
Yeah, and I said that they.
What about my acting skills?
No, well, that's what I said. I said they probably didn't get enough of you.
Yeah.
And I didn't want them to leave here disappointed, and therefore we thought you could come out again, because that was just that was.
Wait
just,
till you see my King Lear. I'm going to do 2 hours of it now.
I don't think these people have even seen your stand-up comedy.
No, they haven't. No, there's some inadvertently sometimes they have. That's the problem. Anna, so. You know, my very first question is does that make you very tired to do?
No, I'm okay.
You okay?
Yeah.
All right, because, I mean, I know it's your job, but it's pretty intense. I have to say, this will be like the last nice thing I say about you, so we're going to be cool. But I have to say that I was really feeling this just watching, and this is maybe the third time I've seen this done live. I've been editor for a while now, and there's a lot of things that, I mean, we have a great team at the Atlantic, and we've done some, I think, some important things, some good things, but nothing makes me prouder than our affiliation with you and publishing and working on this play. Really, I just...
well, I'm sure I brag about you even more.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm really... I really feel like... and I remember, as we're reading iterations of it, and as it filled out, I remember talking to Scott and saying, like, we both sort of recognized something very deep was going on here, deeper than most journalism, but also journalism. And I would love you to talk to the audience a little bit about the process of research and creativity and narrative propulsion. You do something that I'm sure there are a few people who do this kind of thing. I don't think anybody's doing it on your level. So maybe you could just talk a little bit for a few minutes about how you start as a journalist and then you bring it toward art.
Well, I mean, you know, I've sat with some of the journalists from the Atlantic, and I wouldn't call myself that. I mean, I'm interested in reality, and then what is it in reality that has the kernels of something that you want to go back and look at again? Yeah, so if you're interested in reality and I'm interested in reality, that's similar. As you know, since for a long time I've been looking at what happens to kids in the criminal justice system. At the time that we started to speak outright and a lot in public about mass incarceration, I didn't really hear very much about children. And so I wanted to learn about what was called the school-to-prison pipeline. And at the end of all of that, I realized, and it's for good reason, so I don't want to be misunderstood, you know, if I sent around a notepad and I said, draw a picture of a vulnerable child in America, it may be male of color, and I felt that I wasn't seeing enough about how the systems that I studied were affecting girls. And so once I started looking at girls, that's exactly the time that you came to me and asked me if I would like to consider writing something for The Atlantic, and I thought that that would be a good opportunity to have another way of looking at facts and to do a real historical dive in order to write an essay for you.
Right.
So that's the process, and you know, I think what really made it go from just research was the Constitutional Convention, the transcripts, which I printed out, and they're like that high. I mean, they really love to
How did you even come to those?
at the Maryland State Archives.
But how did you even know to go start hunting around?
Just in the way of doing research that, you know, I knew to go there. My research assistant was very good.
I mean, these are revelatory documents.
It's a revelatory document, and that's what I'm talking about. Is so that when reality becomes something you want to go back. I mean, I would have never thought of that argument about, you know, well, we brought them from Africa here to be educated, and now they're going to go back and be missionaries to evangelize Africa, or that someone like Mr. Pugh, who is on the one hand fully in favor of education, but the other hand does not believe that we are equal, right? So, I don't know, it's a long way of saying is that going through that archive in particular is what caused me, as you know, to turn into my very patient editor, Scott Stossel, who's over there, who expected an essay. I did not warn him that it was a play.
We had talked about it.
And
Just write whatever you want if it comes out as a play.
Effing idiot. He said, "Oh, it's a play."
It was great. It's easy for me to say he had to edit it.
He had to edit it.
Yeah. I mean, it came in long, but what we did was we, you know, and I do think that this is I think it's a market advantage of The Atlantic is that we make the, I believe, correct assumption that we have readers who can read long things.
Yeah.
And that if people are going to leave that field, I'd rather have a strong ecosystem where a lot of people would consider doing, you know, superficially harebrained schemes like, well, let's publish a 1,000,000-word Anna Deavere Smith play, because why not? But if people are going to leave that field, we're going to do even more of that kind of thing. That's not my way of saying what are you doing next yet, but we'll get that. But come back to
A ballet. Let's see you pull that off.
the Atlantic Ballet.
I actually think you should do something with the Alvin Ailey Dance Company.
Well, that'll be fun, and I will not be coming out on stage for that, clearly. But I wouldn't mind if you wrote a part for me that wasn't that, and like, I would like Ulysses S. Grant or something. Someone kind of like.
Well, Salmon Chase.
Salmon Chase
they didn't
was pretty.
meet Salmon Chase, who becomes very important in this play.
Yeah,
you could play Salmon Chase.
I would like that very
Yeah.
much. Talk to, I mean, a lot of people here have undoubtedly seen or read your Crown Heights work and the work out of Los Angeles and the riots. Can you talk about the things that differentiate this from those and where the overlap might be?
Well, there's a huge difference because everything that I had done, and Fires of the Mirror was the 13th play in a series of plays that I created, you know, wanting to work with real people's language, actually what they said and how they said it. And with this, a few things. Number one, that it's not meant to be a one-person show. I want to write for other actors. There's that.
And by the way, I should say that in New York a few months ago.
Yeah.
You had
17 actors.
17 actors do it in a performance space, just sort of for the first time. I mean, it was a cosmic experience for me, who's only seen it in 2D, to see these great actors, Broadway actors, do this just as a very first experiment in what obviously we hope will be many more performances, but just want to note that. So there's 17 parts.
Yeah. Well, yes, or it'd probably be less if it's ever going to get produced.
Yeah.
I'll have to figure out a way to deal with that. What was your question, though?
I don't even remember. Oh, what's the difference between this and those?
So with all my other work...
It's the end of the festival. Give me we gotta
With all my other work, I'm sorry I didn't even see people over there. I'm just absolutely obsessed and religious about what exactly they said and how they said it, right? And then when cameras became small enough, how they moved. So I had an Alvin Ailey dancer as a movement coach. I have a brilliant dialect coach, so forth and so on. So with this, I was still in that religious feeling in terms of the actual words that were said on the Constitutional Convention floor, and in more than here in the Atlantic version, interviews of people I had done in the present, who are many of them in a fantastic project, from a fantastic project in Chicago Cred, which Arnie Duncan, former Secretary of Education, began to have an intervention with gun violence. And I had an opportunity to interview many of them. And so I used some of that material. So the only thing left of that modern verbatim talk is Jackson, the boy in prison.
Mm-hmm.
He exactly said that to me. And yeah, sound for sound.
Right.
And then the Constitutional Convention is that way. And, I think...
That was one of the parts that's mind-blowing, was that this is actual dialogue.
That was said in 1864.
Actual words said in Annapolis.
Amazing, right?
Yeah, amazing.
So now, academics in particular were very excited about the play as it was in the magazine, because working with Scott, we had all these footnotes. The footnotes were, academics love footnotes.
Yeah.
So we had, inside of one speech, exactly if somebody from the Chicago group said that, and then that the rest of it I made it up. And of course, so that won't read on stage, right? I mean, we'd have to have those to get that part of it. So now comes the work of fictionalizing more of it, and not fictionalizing, but reinterpreting some of the historical stuff, if that answers your question.
Right.
But you were the one, see, that was you, because really, as you recall, and Scott does very well, that I wasn't just looking at 1864. I was looking at the 30s, I was looking at the 60s, I was looking at the first juvenile court, which was in Chicago. I wanted to know exactly what Tobias, the character, says. How did we get here? How do we get this system, the child care system and the juvenile system, the foster care system? How did we get this system? So I looked at and you were the one in a meeting who said, well, why don't you include some of, quote unquote, your people? And so that's what, yes, you did. Didn't he, Scott?
What did I mean by your people?
The people that I'd interviewed. You said, why don't you put some of that? Yeah, why don't you put some of that?
Well, talk about where you interviewed them. I mean, because you in the course of doing this, before the play, you were obviously, as you said, preoccupied by this question of juvenile justice, particularly black girls, and how the system deals with them or doesn't deal with them. But you visited some different facilities, and I just take us inside one of these moments when you're connecting with some of the people who turn up in different form in some of the work. I mean, because the stories that you told us are fascinating.
Well, before I got to girls is when now my work with girls, what I want to know about girls is how the girls I've met is how they survive. But when I was going into facilities, it was both boys and girls, right? And so the facilities ranged from the one that this scene with Jackson is based on, which is like high tech, like perfect. It looked like a well-endowed junior college, an incredible place.
This is in Maryland.
In Maryland, incredible place that was definitely, as Jackson said, giving you everything you need for success. There's that extreme. The other extreme is like this dark room in Northern California in which I interviewed a Native American girl named Stormy. I could barely even see her in the horrible, horrible light. So, but I will say that unexpectedly, and if anybody here works in the system, the thing that we don't know as much about is how hard the work is inside of these facilities. And you do meet some human beings who are highly developed, who just can combine compassion with rules. And before we completely dismiss it all, I think we need to know about them. And even the fact that we call the school-to-prison pipeline does an extraordinary disservice to some of the amazing teachers that I met when I was working on this big project about juvenile justice.
We're, coming out of that research project, did you feel more hopeful about a certain societal trajectory, or did it bring you down?
I don't know if I get down as much as, I get interested. No, I'm not optimistic right now about it.
Talk
No.
about that a little bit more.
Well, I mean, the disparities are extraordinary. And I think the thing to do now, which I would like to do with the Girls Project, is actually, because I'm working with not just interviewing them, but getting to know them in other ways, is to bring together girls across the economic spectrum. And then we'll really see, I think the girls who don't have very much will be shocked at the other side. This summer I brought Native American girls from Northern California to Baltimore to work with Black urban girls. And even there's a disparity in terms of what people's opportunities are. So I think that we have work to do. And, wouldn't it be great if history didn't repeat itself?
What is the work, just stay on this for a second, what is the work that they were doing in Baltimore this summer? The Native American girls coming down.
And the Black girls. Well, I was using what I know best, right? Which is, I've taught for a very, very long time. And so I brought together a group of artists from all disciplines, and we used performance as a way of finding out about them. They weren't artists, just a small group from Baltimore School for the Arts were artists, but just getting to know about them and putting them in relationship with each other using just performance techniques.
Right. Talk a little bit, without getting overly political or policy oriented in the last few minutes that we have, talk about the connective tissue between, you're making a point about what happened in the 1860s to what happens today. Talk about where you think we have to go in order to sort of disrupt that historical process. That's what you're talking about. That what we're seeing today is the tail end of processes that were set in motion, or assumptions and beliefs that were set in motion hundreds of years ago. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but I suspect that there are people in this audience who are actually on the ground doing that work who can better answer that question. And I see my role as using performance and art as a way to begin the discussion, to spark ideas in the people who are actually in the street doing it. One other thing I want to say about the girls this summer, though, they performed some of this play. And they also performed excerpts which are even more chilling out of the congressional debates about Native American boarding schools, where there's lists, literally lists of how much money they had spent to try to kill the Indians. They said Indians then. And how much more economically efficient it would be to educate them. And so a Native American girl performed a letter that was written from the parents of, from a group of Native Americans who wanted to get their children back. And before I gave her that letter, I called her up and I said, this will be very hard. And by the way, in my profession and in teaching, like the Black student said, I don't want to, that's true, right? That some individuals, artists, students, don't want to be in the darkness. They want joy. I understand that. So I had to explain that to the Native American girl and to the black girls who were going to do this material. And they jumped right in. They said, I want to know. I want to know. I want to embody it. I want to know it by actually saying it. And so that was...
And how did they come out? Did they come out energized? Did they come out
energized?
depressed?
Absolutely energized. And they were working with like Broadway actors and stuff, so they were excited.
Well, that helps. Right.
Well,
That
no,
helps,
but
yeah.
you know, a black girl going up to Broadway, Jay Sanders, an extraordinary actor, saying, because he did some of this Constitutional Convention, Jay, you know what? You sound like a racist. Maybe I am. You know, she's never going to forget that.
I'm never going to forget that, right. So where does it, I think people now are very curious, where does it go from here?
This play?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as you know, Crystal asked me to do it as one person, and I tried to get a reading done here, but Crystal wanted me to do it as one person,
it's
stuff
all
like
good.
that. And so, now there's going to be a reading at Wesleyan.
Right.
There will be a series more of readings of the whole thing, and that's, let me just let everybody go by give another shout out to Scott. So one of the things that was so fantastic about writing this with Scott was that now it usually takes about 2 years to develop a play. You write all these drafts, you have actors, you have a director, and you just keep, nobody likes it until they like it. And with Scott, we started working in April, and something hit the public in November. It was amazing, right? But on the other hand, it still has to go through all of that embodiment and
It's changed a
all of the
lot.
discussion.
I mean, I was surprised by the appearance of the word cuneiform.
Well, yeah, I just gave that to you because I wanted you to have a hard time with the word.
No, I appreciate it.
That was
And
only
thank God
for
I
you.
read it 7
That's
minutes before I came out
Only for
here.
you.
Yeah, I looked a full 7 minutes beforehand, so I knew that I knew that it was somehow a trap. But no, we did. We loved it and we wanted it to be. I mean, and I hope you all can go on the Atlantic's website or those of your subscribers have it at home. This special issue on Reconstruction we have, and I'll close with this because I want to ask you about this. The point of this issue, and a lot of great pieces, Lonnie Bunch, a lot of different people writing about. The assumption is, or the premise is that Reconstruction never got done or never got completed, and that we go in these cycles. Obviously, it was stopped as a way of bringing the white South back into the fold. A lot of different reforms were stopped, obviously, and then you had the rise of a long period of racist violence and obviously total disenfranchisement. And the point is that the country is not yet finished doing this. And so my question to you as a social observer is and you've been writing in this area for a while, and performing in this area for a while. We seem to be in a constant sine curve. 2020 was not like 2016, which is not like 2024. I'm wondering, we're 47, 46 days away from the election, where you feel we are in America's willingness to actually just, instead of bypassing these subjects, just driving right through them and talking about them. I mean, I see the play obviously as a vehicle for that discussion, but what vibrations are you getting from the universe about?
What keeps being said over and over again. We have two choices, and we have to get Kamala Harris into the White House.
Oh, I wasn't. So I was saying somewhat political, but if you want to just go political, I guess we just go in political.
No, I mean,
yeah.
we have to. I mean,
well, what
so
happens
what
to Donald
about
Trump? What happens on the development of America as a multicultural democracy if Donald Trump comes back? I mean, think about that.
Well, I think we have to really work in the spaces that we do have. And we have to ask people to be very courageous in those spaces. We can't waste time, whether that's, some little theater that's still standing. Theaters are shutting down even before we get to that, right? Inside of universities, we're just going to have to work very hard inside of the spaces that we have and make sure that when we're inside of those spaces, everybody feels as though they can give the person with them in the room the benefit of the doubt.
That, it's a great note to end on. It's hopeful, but how hopeful are you that we're in that kind of moment right now in the way we talk to each other?
Oh, I'm not optimistic, but I'm hopeful because I'm a hopeaholic. And I understand that the truly hopeful person is the person who can look and see that it's not good and says, I'm going to go anyway. I'm going to do it anyway.
Great way to end. I want to thank all of you for coming to the festival, for joining us at this very special event with Anna. And I want to thank you for sharing your work.
Thank you for being willing to stretch the parameters of what a magazine can do.
Oh, yeah.
And
We're
an
pivoting.
With an abolitionist history, to bring that forward, to find other ways to embody compassion and imagination and hope. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you all very much. Please subscribe to The Atlantic. Please read Anna. Thank you very much for coming.